Well, this is a surprise. Anyone familiar with Richard Mille knows the design codes of this very distinctive brand are huge dimensions, bold design and lots of color. The very monotone Richard Mille RMUPO1 Ferrari, on the other hand, sets a record for the world's thinnest watch. It measures a mere 1.75 mm thick. Previously Bulgari held the micro-watchmaking record, with its 1.80 mm thick Octo Finissimo Ultra, introduced earlier this year. In order to make the watch thin, Richard Mille's tactic was to distribute the components across a large surface area rather than stacking them, as in a traditional movement. But micro-thin watchmaking is a challenge because the thinner you make the components and baseplate, the less robust the watch becomes. They solved this by making the baseplate and bridges out of grade 5 titanium, a particularly rigid alloy that includes aluminum and vanadium. It was extensively tested to make sure the watch was strong enough to withstand accelerations of over 5,000 Gs. In terms of casing, watchmaking standards stipulate a minimum section thickness of 0.35 mm in certain places. However, we are sometimes at 0.18 mm of material here, says Julien Boillat, Richard Mille's technical director of cases and exteriors. Extensive laboratory testing was necessary to ensure the components offered the needed strength despite this reduction in material at strategic points such as the caseband and caseback. The stability of the escapement is another challenge, so Richard Mille developed a patented ultra-flat balance W. The newly developed movement was reconfigured to combine some functions together, thereby reducing the total number of components, including the winding stem. They also used an extra flat hairspring, which maintains a 45-hour power reserve. The function selector, winding crown, time subdial and balance wheel/hairspring are all displayed on the same plane on the dial, with space left over for the Ferrari's prancing pony logo. The sapphire crystal over the hour dial in the regulator was reduced to a thickness of 0.2 mm. Like Ferrari, which continuously seeks to gain another few thousandths of a second while racing, we fought to shave off the last hundredths of a millimeter to achieve the flattest possible watch. But those last dozen or so micrometers were hard-won in a long and arduous process, says Yves Mathys, head of production for Richard Mille. The case, like most other Richard Mille watches, is tonneau, but it's an east-west tonneau, rotated so that the long end, which is 51 mm, is positioned lengthwise on the wrist, and the short end, which is 39 mm, rests between the knuckles.